The gym was still alive with noise after the final buzzer, but Caitlin Clark wasn't celebrating. She just put up 28 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds in a solid win, but it didn't feel like a victory. Not tonight. Over in the corner, just past a media table, a group of analysts and scouts leaned together, their voices low but sharp enough to cut through the hum. "She's flashy, sure," one of them said, not even glancing in her direction. "But against real competition, she disappears." Another chuckled. "She's overrated. Give her a top-tier defense, and she'll fold like a cheap tent. You'll see." The words landed like a gut punch. She tried to focus on cooling down, stretching, sipping her water, but those voices stuck, like they'd been burned into her skin. It wasn't the first time she'd been doubted. Growing up in West Des Moines, Iowa, she'd been told she wasn't tall enough, strong enough, or from a big enough basketball market to make it at the top level. She'd fought through all of that. But this was different. This wasn't doubt. This was dismissal. The next morning, the whispers had grown teeth. Her phone lit up with sports alerts, each headline more brutal than the last. Is Caitlin Clark overhyped? Great stats, but can she deliver in big games? Why Caitlin Clark's stardom might be short-lived. She scrolled until her thumb hurt, each article twisting the knife a little deeper. Some analysts even called her a product of media hype. Someone the networks wanted to be a star, but who didn't have the skill to match the spotlight. Then came the viral video, a stitched-together montage of her worst moments. Missed threes, turnovers, visible frustration on the court. The caption read, "Overrated. Nothing more to see here." It had 1.2 million views in less than a day. And the comments? Brutal. System player. She'll vanish against real athletes. ESPN's pet project. Caitlin felt the heat rise in her chest. She could take criticism. Basketball was a game of constant adjustments. But this wasn't critique. This was an attack on her name. That week, her calendar showed a red-circled date, a nationally televised matchup against one of the best defensive teams in the country. The kind of game analysts claimed would expose her. She didn't tell anyone, but she'd already made up her mind. This wasn't going to be just another game. She was going to make it a statement. Her preparation turned almost monastic. Morning workouts before sunrise. Film sessions late into the night, breaking down her opponent's defensive schemes frame by frame. Thousands of practice shots until the sound of the ball swishing through the net became as natural as breathing. Her trainer noticed her intensity. "You might be overdoing it," he warned. Caitlin didn't even look up. "This isn't about me anymore. It's about the truth." Game night arrived, and the arena was electric. Every seat filled, every camera locked in. In the front row, a few fans held up supportive signs. "Queen of the court, Clark 4-3. But others weren't so kind. "Clark equals media creation. Overrated." She scanned the crowd and smiled. Let them think what they wanted. They'd find out soon enough. From the opening tip, she felt it, a strange, almost eerie calm. The noise faded. The tension in her shoulders melted away. She knew exactly what she needed to do. The first quarter was a chess match. She tested the defense, reading how quickly they rotated, how aggressively they closed out on her shots. By the second quarter, she started to press, hitting a step-back three here, threading a no-look pass there. At halftime, she tallied 22 points and several highlight plays. The analysts on the sideline were already murmuring about how composed she looked, but she wasn't satisfied, because in the third quarter, she planned to break the game open. Midway through the third, the score was tied. Caitlin dribbled up the court, her eyes scanning the floor, when the opposing team's star guard smirked and mouthed a word. "Overrated." Something inside Caitlin lit up like a fuse. She dribbled once, twice, then stepped back, 5 feet beyond the three-point arc. Even her teammates seemed surprised. The ball soared, spinning in slow motion. Swish. The crowd erupted. The sound hit like a tidal wave. Caitlin didn't break eye contact with her defender. She tapped her wrist, Dame time, and whispered, "Time's up." From that moment, the energy shifted. Every possession became a highlight reel. She drove to the basket, through triple coverage. She dished behind the back passes in traffic. The opposing team threw everything at her, double teams, traps, full court presses, and she shredded them all. But as the third quarter wound down, something happened that made the entire arena gasp. With less than 2 minutes on the clock, Caitlin brought the ball up the floor. The defense closed in, suffocating her space. She spun, sidestepped, and the ball left her hands in a way no one in the building had ever seen before. The crowd rose to their feet. Gasps, shouts. Even the opposing bench stood frozen. What happened next would turn this game, and her career, into something unforgettable. The scoreboard read 158 in the third quarter. The game was tied, the tension wound tight enough to snap. Caitlin Clark had just been called overrated to her face by the opposing team star guard, not whispered behind her back, not hinted at in a headline, spoken directly like a challenge. She didn't flinch. She didn't respond. Instead, she let her game do the talking. She took 2 slow dribbles, measuring the defender like a surgeon preparing for a cut. Then, without warning, she stepped back. Not the regular step-back 3 everyone had seen from her 100 times before. This one was 5 feet beyond the arc, deep enough that most players wouldn't even consider a real shot. The crowd sucked in a collective breath. The ball left her hands with perfect backspin, arching high against the bright lights. Time seemed to freeze, the noise melting away into silence. And then, swish, the arena erupted into chaos. Fans leapt from their seats. Phones shot into the air, recording history in real time. On the broadcast, the commentator lost all composure. That's Steph Curry range. Are you kidding me? Caitlin didn't celebrate. She didn't pump her fist or run back down the court with a grin. She simply tapped her wrist, the Dame time gesture, and mouthed to her defender, not overrated, just underestimated. From that moment on, something shifted. Her opponents tightened their defense, but it didn't matter. They doubled her, trapped her, threw their most physical players in her path. She slipped through it all, spinning into open space, firing precision passes at teammates, hitting shots that had no business going in. Her rhythm was unstoppable. Every move calculated, every pass deliberate, and every time she scored, the roar of the crowd grew louder. But the other team wasn't going to let this become her victory parade. They started playing rough. Elbows in the paint, shoves under basket, subtle jersey tugs the refs couldn't see. Then it happened, midway through the fourth. She cut across the lane to receive a pass. A defender blindsided her with a vicious screen. She hit the floor hard. The breath knocked out of her. Pain flared in her shoulder as she lay there staring at the rafters. The crowd noise replaced by the dull roar of her own heartbeat. Her coach was by her side in seconds. "You good?" She sat up slowly, rotating her shoulder. It hurt badly, but she refused to say it out loud. "I'm fine," she said, already on her feet. "They'll have to do a lot worse than that to get me out of this game." The opposing bench smirked. They thought they had rattled her. They didn't know they had just woken something deeper. When play resumed, Caitlin took over completely, with 5 minutes left. She caught the ball just past half court. 3 defenders swarmed her instantly. She faked left, spun right, and, without even looking, whipped a behind-the-back bounce pass that slid between 2 defenders like it was guided by GPS. Her teammate caught it in stride for an easy layup. The crowd lost their minds. Even some neutral fans in the opposing section stood to applaud. And somewhere in that arena, one of the analysts who had called her overrated just days earlier was quietly erasing his notes. The final stretch was pure adrenaline. 40 seconds on the clock. Down by 2. The ball found its way, as it always did, into Caitlin's hands. She dribbled around one defender, crossed over another, rose from the elbow, and released. The ball hit the front rim, bounced high, and dropped through the net. Tie game. Overtime. In the huddle. Caitlin looked at her teammates, her voice low but steady. "They think we're lucky to be here. Let's make them regret thinking that." When OT began, she didn't just lead, she dominated. Step back 3 from the wing. Pull-up jumper off a steal. Another assist that threaded the needle between 2 collapsing defenders. The crowd was deafening now. Every shot was a statement. Every possession was a reminder that she wasn't here by accident. When the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard told the story. 87-81. Victory. Caitlin's stat line: 47 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds. A career-high performance. She was mobbed by her teammates, the arena vibrating with noise. But as she made her way toward the tunnel, a sideline reporter caught up to her. "Caitlin, you've heard the criticism. You've seen the headlines. Tonight you answer with one of the best performances of your career. What do you have to say to the people who call you overrated?" She didn't hesitate. "I'm just getting started." The interview clip went viral overnight. But what no one could predict was that her next game wouldn't just be big, it would be historic. Within days, the sports world would shift its gaze entirely onto her. The upcoming matchup would shatter records, drawing the largest audience in women's college basketball history. And under those blinding lights, Caitlin Clark would face a moment that could either cement her legacy forever or see it crumble in front of millions. The week after her 47-point explosion, Caitlin Clark's world felt like it had been turned inside out. Everywhere she went, people were talking, not just fans, not just reporters. Everyone. Clips of her deep step back 3 were looping on SportsCenter. Her post-game quote, "I'm just getting started," was printed on t-shirts within 48 hours. Social media was a blur of highlights, reaction videos, and a growing chorus of voices who had gone from doubters to believers. But with that attention came something else. Pressure. Her next game wasn't just another game. It was the game. A primetime showdown against the defending champions. A team built on suffocating defense, stacked with All-Americans, and coached by a strategist known for dismantling star players. The network saw it as a ratings goldmine. Analysts framed it as the real test. Critics framed it as the moment she'll finally get exposed. And for Caitlin, it was more than a test. It was a battle for her basketball identity. 3 days before tip-off, she sat alone in the practice gym. The rest of the team had gone home, but she stayed, pounding the ball against a hardwood in a steady rhythm. Dribble, dribble, shoot, swish. She wasn't chasing perfection. She was chasing certainty. She wanted every movement to be second nature, so that under the bright lights, there would be no hesitation. Her coach walked in, watching her from the sideline. "You know," he said, "you've already proved your point. Last game shut a lot of people up." Caitlin shook her head, grabbing another ball. "That wasn't the point. The point is to make it impossible for them to doubt me again." Game day arrived like a storm. The arena was sold out hours before tip-off. Reporters packed the media row, cameras everywhere. This wasn't just a college basketball game. It felt like the championship before the championship. Back in the locker room, Caitlin laced up her shoes, tuning out the noise. Her teammates were jittery, laughing too loudly, pacing the floor. She sat still, eyes closed, running through every possible defensive look the other team might throw at her. Her phone buzzed on the bench beside her. A text from her dad. "Remember, you've been ready for this since you were 10. She smiled. Then she stood, gathering the team in a circle. "Whatever happens out there," she said, "we decided. Not them, not the crowd, not the critics. Us." When they stepped onto the court, the sound hit like a tidal wave. The defending champs won the tip and immediately set the tone. A fast, physical style, denying Caitlin the ball at every turn. The first possession, she touched it. She was met with a hard double team. They weren't just guarding her. They were shadowing her, breathing down her neck. For the first 3 minutes, she barely got a clean look at the basket. And the whispers started again, this time from the crowd. "Where's the Clark magic now?" She can't handle this defense. But Caitlin didn't panic. She knew something they didn't. Sometimes the best way to take over a game is to wait. Midway through the first quarter, she caught the ball off a high screen and immediately hit a cutting teammate for a layup. Next possession, same thing, this time a kick out for a wide open 3. Assist after assist. Slowly, the defense started to loosen, the double teams arriving a half second later. And when that window opened, she struck a pull-up 3 from the wing. A mid-range jumper after shaking her defender with a crossover. A fast break layup that drew a foul. By the end of the first quarter, she had 8 points and 5 assists, not gaudy numbers, but she'd set the tone. The crowd could feel it. The second quarter was a grind. The defending champ switched to a zone, forcing her to shoot over their length. She missed 2 in a row, then 3. The analysts pounced. She's forcing it now. They figured her out. But Caitlin wasn't worried. She'd seen this defense before, and she knew how to break it. With 90 seconds left in the half, she called for an ISO. One-on-one, the defender crouched low, ready for her step back. Instead, Caitlin blew past her, slicing through the lane and finishing a reverse layup that drew a foul. The whistle echoed through the arena, and for the first time all night, the defending champs looked unsure. Halftime, the score was tied 41-41. In the locker room, the coaches broke down adjustments, but Caitlin barely heard them. She was already replaying the first half in her head, looking for cracks. She found them. The third quarter started with a bang. On the very first play, Caitlin dribbled past the half-court line, looked up, and fired a 3 from 30 feet out. Swish. The crowd erupted. Her teammates jumped off the bench. She followed it up with another deep 3, then a steal and a no-look pass for an easy bucket. Within 4 minutes, they'd built an 8-point lead. The defending champs called timeout, but it didn't matter. Caitlin was in rhythm now, reading their defense like an open book. The quarter became a blur, a drive and kick that froze the defense, a spin move into a floater, a cross-court dime that threaded between 2 defenders. By the time the buzzer sounded, she had 27 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds, and there was still 1 quarter left to play. But the defending champs weren't done. In the fourth, they clawed back, tying the game with just over 2 minutes to go. The crowd was on edge, the noise deafening. On the next possession, Caitlin caught the ball at the top of the key. Her defender crowded her, practically daring her to drive. She faked right, crossed left, and pulled up for a jumper. The ball was in midair when a whistle blew. A defender had crashed into her, sending her to the floor. The ball kissed the backboard, rolled around the rim, and the arena held its breath. If it dropped, it would be the play of the night. If it didn't, everything, her legacy, her redemption, would come down to the final seconds. The ball spun on the rim like it couldn't make up its mind. Forward, backward, side to side. Then it dropped, and one. The whistle's echo was swallowed by the roar of the arena. Her teammates swarmed her, but Caitlin stayed calm, walking the free throw line like it was just another rep in practice. The scoreboard read 74-72, her team up by 2, with 1:48 remaining. This was the kind of moment that broke players, or turned them into legends. She took a breath, bounced the ball twice, and let the free throw fly. Swish, 3-point lead. But the defending champs weren't going away quietly. On their next possession, they ran a perfectly executed backdoor cut for a layup. 1-point game. The crowd was deafening now, every single fan on their feet. Her coach didn't call a timeout. He trusted her. Caitlin dribbled across half court, scanning the defense. The doubles came quicker now, desperate to force the ball out of her hands. She passed to the wing, then cut to the corner, calling for it again. The pass came late. A defender closed out hard, arms flailing. Caitlin pumped once, stepped inside the arc, and pulled up. The ball arced high, too high, and hit the front rim. Gasps. But she followed her own shot, leaping into traffic, ripping the rebound away from 2 taller players. She kicked it back out to her teammate, who drilled the 3, 77-73. The building shook, but just when it felt like the game was theirs, disaster struck. With 49 seconds left, Caitlin intercepted a pass and took off in transition. She was a step ahead of everyone, until she wasn't. A defender came flying from behind, swatting the ball loose. The turnover led to a fast break 3 on the other end. 77-76, 1-point game. The arena was pure chaos. Fans screaming, coaches shouting, players pounding their chests. Timeout. 34 seconds on the clock. In the huddle, the coach drew up a play to run the clock and find the safest shot possible. Caitlin listened, nodding, but inside she knew the ball wasn't leaving her hands. When play resumed, she brought it up slowly, eyes locked on the shot clock. 10, 9, 8. She made her move, a hard drive to the right, crossing over at the free throw line, stepping back just inside the arc. The defender was draped on her like a shadow. She rose anyway. Release, rotation, silence, swish. The crowd detonated. Her teammates screamed her name. She clenched her fists, not in celebration, but in pure, defiant relief. 79-76. The defending champs called timeout. 11 seconds remained. The final play was simple. Deny the three at all costs. But basketball has a way of ignoring even the best laid plans. Their star guard came off a double screen, caught the ball at the top of the key, and launched a desperation shot. The ball hit the back rim, bounced high, and fell straight into Caitlin's hands. The horn sounded. Game over. The sound was indescribable. A mix of joy, disbelief, and history in the making. Final score, 79-76. Caitlin Clark's stat line: 38 points, 12 assists, 9 rebounds, 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, in what would officially go down as the most-watched women's college basketball game in history. She shook hands with her opponents, hugged her teammates, then turned toward the stands. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters jostled for position. She was mobbed with questions. Did you know this game was going to be historic? What does this mean for your legacy? Do you have anything to say to the critics now? She paused, looking around the arena, the banners, the scoreboard, the fans still screaming her name. I don't play to prove people wrong. I play to prove myself right. The footage of that interview was shared millions of times within hours. Sports networks ran it on repeat. The clip of her 30-foot three in the third quarter was already being called a dagger. But what stuck with people wasn't just the shots she made. It was the way she carried herself, refusing to be rattled, refusing to shrink when the lights burned brightest. Later that night, long after the arena had emptied, Caitlin sat alone in the locker room. Her jersey was damp with sweat, her shoes scuffed from the fight. She scrolled through her phone, messages from friends, teammates, former coaches. One stood out. It was from the same trainer who'd warned her weeks ago about overworking herself. Told you it would all be worth it. Proud of you. She smiled. For the first time in weeks, the noise was gone. The next morning, the sports world was unanimous. Headlines screamed, Clark's masterpiece, a night for the ages. From overrated to untouchable, the queen of the court. The critics, silent. The whispers, gone. She'd done more than win a game. She'd turn a narrative into rubble. In an interview days later, she was asked if this was the peak of her career. She shook her head, grinning. The peak? No, this was just the climb. And somewhere, in arenas she hadn't yet stepped into, future opponents were watching the film, knowing they were about to face not just a great player, but a force they couldn't intimidate. Because the truth was clear now. They said she was overrated, and she proved she was inevitable. The shot, the crowd, the record-breaking numbers, they'd all fade in time. But the moment she stepped up when the world was watching and didn't just play well, but owned the game, that would never be forgotten.